Good morning. So here I am, drawing a wizard. Just want to explain that in 1982, I drew this. I was going to make him in porcelain. You can see his name here is Fala Vigi. As a dyslexic, one tends to make up words, at least I do. And they often look the way they sound. So it's got 3 A's in it, 2 F's. And I really felt it was a wizard's name. I began, when I was drawing it, this is what I was going to make idea. I knew I'd make strands of porcelain, long strands, and I would hang on the strands things like watches. And how it would work was you make a strand of porcelain like that, really thin, with a hook on it, and then you draw a watch or maybe a star or a sacred number. And you'd put a hook on it so that it could hang on there. Or in this case, this handle on the watch would go over that, like that. So it could be anything. It could be an equation, but it would have to have a hole in it or something to hook on it. And then they would move around. That was the idea. It gets fired 3 times. Biscuit firing is around about 800 degrees. So at 600 degrees, clay becomes ceramic and cannot become clay again. 800 degrees means it's strong enough to be able to paint and do things with. You then put glazes on it, and anything like that, any of these would have gold put on them. But you can't have the gold without glaze. So you glaze those, paint them and glaze them. Fire it all. These would be fired separately with little hooks on. You'll understand why in a minute. And then that's at 1300 degrees. And then eventually that comes out, and then these are all shiny, and then you put gold on. Gold is suspended in luster and is up. Good morning, Familia DM Vlogs. Good morning to you. These are glazed. You need glaze to put luster on. Gold, silver, whatever, copper, bronze, mother of pearl. It then goes back into the kiln again for a 3rd time. All of those fired separately. This is fired as well with gold spots and things on. And it's only fired at 780 degrees. It's a dangerous firing. And it has to be really slow for the medium that the gold is actually in to burn off successfully. If it burns off successfully, it leaves the luster behind. It could be just little dots. It could be simply gold dots. It could be circles. It could be shapes. It could be whatever. And that was him. That was the drawing. And as I say, this is the actual sculpture that came out. Let me just move that up. That came out of the firing. And a lot of these had gold on. There's a dragon here with gold on. A wizard here with gold on. She's got gold here. Tiny little bits and pieces. So that was how it worked. So today I'm doing a live drawing, and I've been drawing him now for about an hour. So this is the original drawing from 1992, the sculpture I've just shown you. And what I've been drawing is Balavaji as he is now here. I'm just going to very briefly tell you a story that is connected with Falavaji, this amazing wizard from my books, The Realms of Elsewhere. There are details in my bio. I'm crowdfunding to develop the next trilogy. Anyway, a story that I'm going to tell you is about one of the characters called Samsi. who is yet to learn who he was in another life. There is a terrifying thing going on where all the trees in the world are going to burn and be destroyed. And in the story, Samsi and his friends have to travel to the graveyard of dragons. As they enter it, Samsi looks round at his friends. They're all quite young, really, kind of anything from 11 to 14. There are lots of different characters in this story, but this is Samsi. And Samsi says to them, "You can't come with me. I have to go and find a dragon on my own." "But Samsi," they said, "this is a graveyard. You can't go in there on your own." "I have to," he says. So he enters this massive graveyard. As he moves along a path that's on a rising hill, he can see above him, like sentries, there are crows 10, 12 foot high, just standing there, staring at him. They are literally staring at him. Everywhere there are bones, scattered, stacked on the ground. Up he goes, alone, along the path, until the path itself vanishes, and still he goes on. A boy, full of stuff and worry, yet he has to do this. And eventually he comes to the top of the hill, and before him, an ocean. Its waves lightly splashing on the shore. This is the place of the first dragons. This is the place where they lay their eggs. This is where the father of all dragons would appear out of the deepest oceans. Long ago that was. As Samsi stood there, the wind blew. He knew not what to do until he saw a dragon coming out of the water. A young dragon she was, and she looked at him, and he told her his story. The Goblin Empire have one of the last 3 stones of the Stone of Destiny. We need to go there. We need to give them something so they will give us the stone. The dragon looked down at him. Goblins are dangerous. They are very dangerous. I have learnt many things about them. What do you think that you would give them for them to keep their word? I was told to come here, says Samsi. I was told that there were ancient bones. Goblins, among all others, hold bones as sacred and valuable. They will seek many places to gain the most valuable bones, bones of kings and queens, of quas and masters, wise and otherwise. I have been told there are bones here that even the goblins have never had, but dream of. The dragon looked around and then began to move towards a skull and looked back at Samsi. This is the skull of the father of all dragons. For eons he would come out of the sea and father my ancestors. She got closer. There was a sound. The skull began to shine, to vibrate. For a while Samsi watched. He was less fearful now. There was something in the air that told him that this was something he must not fear. Eventually the dragon made a sound raised its head in the air and called out onto the wind. Those sentries, those giant crows, began to move across the land now. In their arms, great pinions, huge iron stakes. Eventually, they were there. Samsey could smell them. They were horrendous. The sight of them was even worse. And now they lifted the skull onto the back of the dragon. Once it was there, they climbed onto its back and drove those iron pins into the back of the dragon itself. One by one, they tied with gut and iron. They tied that skull onto the iron stakes until it was done. And when it was, there was blood everywhere. And poor Samsey, he watched all of this in horror and did not know, could not imagine how the dragon was surviving. Yet it did. And it was then and no other then, that the dragon, looking at Samsey, said, you must come here. You must be my rider before I die. Samsey, petrified, reached up and pulled himself up on one of the legs of the dragon. Sticky it was and red. Up he went, weeping now, sorrowful. Never, ever had he ever imagined this would come to him. Oh, his grandfather had told him about dragons in some story or another, but he knew nothing about them, not really. He believed they had died thousands of years ago, yet here he was, climbing up onto this dragon. Once he was there, they began to move away, watched by the crows, who followed a while, making sure that he left. He was not meant to be there. As they came down the path, Samsey looked up and could see the great lake beyond, and behind him it flowed differently now. On the other side, the sea. As he approached his friends, as they saw him coming down the hill on the back of the dragon, then they saw the skull, the stakes. They held on to one another, little Grace, Maisie, Will, Arnold, all of them. None of them knew what to do. What did this mean? Where would they go? They were meant to go to the Goblin City. Would they fly there? The dragon, exhausted and dying, reached the water. As she did, she began to drink, to try and revive herself. They watched, and then there was a sound. The most extraordinary sound came across the air. Samsey looked up, east, along the sea. And then he saw a mist. It seemed as if a cloud was moving towards them. His friends looked and saw it too. And then eventually the dragon looked up and saw this cloud seemed to be calling to him. Eventually, Samsey realized that this was no cloud at all. As they got nearer, he could see, they all could see, that it were swans. The cloud was swans, hundreds of them. By now they were landing in the water close to the dragon. You could hear the splashing as one after another, 10, 20, 100, then 200, and still countless they landed. They drifted into the water quickly, surrounding the dragon, pressing their feathers against his scales. Eventually, they began to take the weight of the dragon, until they began to lift. Upwards went the dragon. More swans went underneath the belly of the creature, until he was up in the air. Upwards, upwards. And then, one by one, the swans carried him down, down across the water, down to the west, to a place of healing. Samsi's friends, one by one, they took out their flying machines, the volubilis. Like a balloon, it was a natural thing. Inflating at once, it threw out its tail that wrapped itself around its pilot. And then they followed Samsi and the dragon and the swans down across the water, down to the place of healing. And that was one of the stories of the future. And this look of Falavaji, when he is in his home, where there are more rooms inside than you could ever imagine from outside, rather like a TARDIS, yet it has 4 sides and 6, yet it has many rooms. Each room is a place of teaching. Sometimes he teaches about the stars. If you entered that room, the stars would be moving on the walls. Books would appear out of the ground. Ancient they were. Ancient because Falavaji is not of this world. A master he is. In a distant room, in his home, in a room made of the sky, made of the sea, made of fire, made of the air. In that room are old men and women, elders, waiting to be taught the skills that he shares with others. And they gather there as Falavaji enters. They bow to him quietly, in a humble way, for they know that what he's about to tell them, they must never, never forget. For none of us will be here forever. And that's almost finished. So I'm doing this on various platforms. And on TikTok, I've been doing this for a week. And we have a hat. And somebody wins a drawing every day, which is great fun. So we had somebody won that one. Yesterday they won that, which is a foxglove. This one is a good book will always look after you. This one is Toadstool Expert. This one is The Journey Begins, which is from one of my very, very first illustrations. And this one I drew 3 days ago. It's a bluebell fairy. And today it's the wizard. Where have you gone? There you are. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little insight into the realms of elsewhere. How does what make sense? I'm the only one. Well, how it makes sense is I'm not doing it on YouTube yet. but I will be next week. If you turn up on Monday next week, I will be doing a live drawing every day. And if you come on, it'll be 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 every day next week. If you come on at that time and you're the only one, you're likely to be the only one and you will win, which will be pretty cool. All you have to do is put into the comments your name and into the hat. And the next day, I get the hat like this, and I've got the names in there, and I take one out without looking, and somebody wins. Today, it wasn't Angela today. But anyway, whoever's there, you usually get about 8 to 10 people put their names in the hat. I haven't checked today. But yeah, so if you're here next week, you can tell your friends if you like. If you're here at 8:30 next week, Monday to Friday, yeah, you might win a drawing. Well, you would win a drawing if it was only you. Right, I will be putting an advert out on YouTube about this, so it might not only be you. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this tiny little bit of drawing I did here. Yeah. See, enjoy your day, and thank you for being here.